even if the body was anxious, the mind could be calm. The body's anxious. Oh, the brain's racing. Poor little horsey, right? Rather than go, oh my God, he won't stop thinking and it's all scared. So, I got that separation, and the mind, the brain, the soul can be calm even if the brain and the body is anxious and nervous. And then I think what runs through the soul is spirit. And spirit is the soul's connection to divinity. That you get fed stuff, you get downloads, you get awarenesses, you get intuition, that if your mind is quiet enough and your body's quiet enough, you can sense and you can feel. But if your brain's racing and your body's anxious, how are you going to feel these subtle guidances, these subtle nudges this way and that way, where once you learn that that's what's happening, you feel them all day long, and just nobody ever told you to look for them.
Welcome to the Quiet Knowing podcast. Today we have a special guest, John Glanvill. He is a therapist and creator of the Calmness in Mind course. And without his course, I would not be the person I am today. John, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, so welcome to the podcast, John. When you hear Quiet Knowing podcast, what does that mean? What does quiet knowing mean to you? Quiet knowing.
When Kendall sent an email through asking me to come on there, I looked at it. It's a quiet knowing. I thought, that's nice. I like that. To me, quiet knowing is if you can rise above the noise of your brain and the emotions of your body, if you can pull yourself out, you suddenly realize that there is a calmness out there. And I think, personally, I think that our soul has a knowing of things, whereas our brain wants to know about things. How does it work? How much does it cost? How can I get more of those things? What if they don't like it? What if it fails? But outside of it, you can just go, I just know that that's bad for me, or I know that that's good for me. And there's no story attached to it. So I think the soul can get through life without a story, but the brain and the mind and the ego and the body, they want to have a story about something and what they ought to do and what they shouldn't do and what's good and what's bad. And you get caught up in all of those arguments which stress the body, and you go round and round in circles. So to me, I like the quiet knowing. One of the things that I say to a lot of people that I work with, a lot of people who have anxiety, but they're still quite high functioning. And I say to them, what happens in an emergency? And they say, well, actually, I'm really good in the emergency. I'm calm. I get it all sorted out. Everyone looks to me, right? And I say, well, then when there's no emergency, when there's no emergency, I'm worrying about tomorrow. I'm worrying about the next day. So it's the strange thing is when they've got no time to think, they're really good. But when they got time to think, they turn themselves into anxious blobs. So I think that the soul knows. It just knows. And I think it's connected to nature, it's connected to divinity. And divinity acts through you in some way if you let it. And most people have never learned how to let it, or don't believe that they can let it because their ego says, no, I'm doing all this. Without me, you'll be nothing. But actually, without you, you'll be everything. But it's quite a leap to take.
Yeah. Do you feel like that kind of dysfunction that you described of when you're in an emergency situation, you're able to do well, but when it's not, there's all of this noise and worrying going on. Do you feel like that's kind of like part of the human condition from a physical perspective, or more of like a conditioning from society?
I think it's two elements. Well, it's probably more than two elements in my mind. My two jump to my mind. Sure. One is, it's childhood programming. My mum was anxious and she worried about everything, and I saw her worrying about everything, so I worried about everything. And when I was going to school, she'd say, have you got your bag? Have you got your lunch? Have you got your book? Did you do this? And careful with the road, and don't do this. And so I was already scared before I even left the house. Now, bless her, she was just being a caring mum. And my dad was the other way around. My dad was really laid back, and he'd go, "Oh, don't worry, John, it'll be fine. Don't worry, if you forget your lunch, you can borrow a sandwich off of somebody." So I had these two different worlds, but because I spent more time with my mum, I sort of sided with her, I guess, in my domestication, in my programming. And it took me until I was 35 to let all that go. So on one level, I think there's the domestication. And on the other level, I think there is your personality type, which, were you born an introvert? Were you born an extrovert? Do you have external sensing or internal sensing? So I think there's so many things, like there's all those things wrapped up, I would say are part of answering that question. But then as you grow, you've got to let go of your domestication. And even if you were born a certain past personality, the question is, can you expand that personality? So if you were born an introvert, well, how can you learn to become extroverted? If you are a loud extrovert, how can you learn to quieten down and let somebody else talk? Just to expand your repertoire, your value to the world, and thereby your value to yourself in the world.
So you're saying that's a possibility. So I feel like a lot of things going on, especially, on the internet and TikTok and stuff, that's, in terms of just like psychological disorders, you get labeled with this thing and that's you're this thing. But you're saying that you can go beyond those things and maybe even change.
Yeah. I used to have really bad anxiety, really bad OCD. I mean, crazy OCD, and bouts of depression, and that was up from the ages of 12 to 35, and now I'm 61 now. I haven't had any depression since I was 50. Okay, I've had no OCD since I was 35, and no anxiety since I was 35. So I know that that's possible. I used to be really shy and introverted and self-conscious, and now I'm still an introvert, but I'm not shy and self-conscious. I can still be extroverted if I want to be. I can play that role. It's a little bit awkward, but sometimes it's of value, and it makes my life broader. Took a lot of work, took a lot of effort. I had to challenge myself, and I think a better way of answering that question is, because my work really is, I work with anxiety, OCD, and depression, and it's the people that have it really, really bad. My average client has really, really, really got it bad. They've tried everything. They've been to the doctors, and they're sort of losing hope. And I tell them the story of how I got out of it. Okay. And the best way out of anxiety is exposure therapy. You expose yourself to the very thing that makes you anxious. And people say, well, I don't want to do that because it's too scary. And I say, well, yeah, I get that. But if you do it and you keep doing it, it will become less scary, and your body will normalize, and the story will change, and you will get through that. And they say, oh, no, it's too scary. But I found after a while that the best way to do exposure therapy is not on your fear, is on your life. Yeah. So and you guys are running a podcast. I guess it was a bit nervous the first time you done a podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say that's pretty much what we're doing with this podcast.
Yeah, right. But the second one was easier, and the third one's easier, and hopefully this one will be easier. And in a year's time you'll be seasoned podcasters. Okay. And people say, oh, you're so brave. It's all right for you because you can sit in front of a camera. But they don't realize that you sat with the discomfort. You got through it. It normalized. Your story changed. So I'm a big fan of doing exposure therapy on your life, on who you want to be and what you want to do. Yeah. And as a therapist, as a coach, as a teacher, when I have a new client, I say, well, I've got this problem. And I say, okay, I get that. But if you didn't have that problem, what would you be doing? Who would you be? And they say, well, I can't even think about that because I've got to get through this problem. And that's actually half the problem, because if you don't know who you want to be and you don't know what you want to do, actually being stuck is a good thing, because it means you don't have to come and face the challenges of finding what the hell you need to do. So I'm a big fan for exposure therapy on life and creating more value to life. And because this is a spiritual podcast, my background's all in engineering, and because I've got a brain that likes to analyze everything, and I can't find the answers to most things. So my brain comes up with models, a model that even if it's not true, my mind can go, well, I can handle that model, right? Until I can find out more information. So I'm a big believer in having temporary models until you can find out more information. So on my sort of level of moving forward, I believe that the universe, I call it the godly verse. I'm not a religious person, and I don't really want to get caught up in religion at all. It doesn't work for me, but I'm happy for other people that it does work for. But I do believe in God, and I believe in the universe having intelligence. I believe in nature having intelligence, and I believe that everything is connected by energy. And I really spent a lot of time thinking to myself, if I were God or if I were nature, any character or any animal or any human being in my world that wanted to better themselves, that wanted to grow, that wanted to do more, I would send them more energy and I would send them more opportunity, because they can bring more back to the environment that they're in. And then once that person had grown and learned this thing, I would test them to see, can they handle it? And if they can't handle it, well, I'd take all that power away, because you can do a lot of damage if you've got lots of power, but not much common sense. Okay. But if they pass that test, well, I'll give them more energy and more consciousness and more awareness. And I'll sort of move them up through the levels of consciousness until they become a person that has a lot of energy and a lot of power and a lot of wisdom that is divinity and nature working through them. So that was just a model I used to sort of start my journey. And a lot of it was borrowed from David Hawkins. He has something called the Map of Consciousness, where he basically says, very simply put, and is that there's lots of different types of energy. And a lot of the energy out there is actually feeding from you. I mean, it's not good for you, not good for you. You sometimes you sniff some milk and you go, oh, that's not good. You just know it's not good for you, so you don't eat it, And so there's lots of things that are not good for you. We might call that a negative energy, life-taking energy. And then there's other energy that's good for you. Yeah. So someone smiles at you, you smile back. It feels nice. It's a high energy interaction. If someone's scowling at you, it doesn't feel good, and it's a negative sort of interaction. So that really caught my attention. Do your thoughts have energy that is good for you and inspires you and brings you alive, energizes you, or do your thoughts take your energy from you? Okay. Mm-hmm. If you hang out with your friends and you go, oh, I had a terrible week and it was really horrible when it rained and you're sucking the life out of the room and your friends, and their experience of you is you're moaning about your holiday. Me personally, if I had a terrible holiday and I came back and my friend says, how was your holiday? I say, well, it was terrible, but it was so funny. Let me tell you about all the things that went wrong, and you still turn it into a happy story because that's a happy energy. So thoughts have energy. So I really got caught up in the it's hard to put into words. A happy emotion feels much better than a sad emotion. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if your brain is telling you lots of horrible, sad stories, unconsciously, how could you consciously say, well, I'm not going to listen to them. I'm going to run some more happy ones. Yeah. And the unconscious, because nothing happy is happening. And then you go, well, it doesn't matter if nothing happy is happening. If I run a happy thought, I'm going to get a happy feeling. Right? And so you move away from the world controls how I feel to I will choose how I feel. And so I spent a long time sort of thinking in those terms, and that really helped me to change my attitudes and to change the story I had of myself and the story I had of the world. So that's kind of how I got involved in those things. Energy was a big thing for me.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you developed your course, how you came up with the idea and then put it together, and a little bit about what it is?
So I had anxiety from about 12 to about 35, but I was still high functioning. So I was really shy and geeky, but I still went to school and I still got a job, but I was a bit different. I do have a strange personality. I'm not normal. I'm a normal person, but I back then I felt very much like a fish out of water, and I just saw the world very differently to other people, and I had this strange thing in my head whereby I'd look at people's conversations or what they were doing and what the world was doing, and my brain would say, well, that won't work or that will work. But it wouldn't show me why it would work or why it wouldn't work. Okay, and maybe Kendall, you can relate to this a little bit. And my father would be doing something, some woodwork or something, and I'd say to him, and I was only about 12 or 13, I said, Dad, I don't think that's going to work. And he said, what do you mean it's not going to work? Mm-hmm. And I said, no, just something's not right. And he said, oh, don't be silly. All right? And I said, no, really, Dad, something's wrong. And he said, well, what is it then? And I said, I don't know, Dad, just something's wrong. And then he'd be cutting wood and hammering nails, and then he'd go, oh, and it doesn't work. And he'd look at me and he said, why didn't you tell me? And I said, I did tell you. He said, no, you just, and so I sort of learned, well, what's this? It's not a power I have. It's just my unconscious brain is really good at watching everything that's happening around me, trying to figure it out, and then giving my conscious mind a story that's good or that's bad. It will work or it won't work. But when I was young, I just stopped using it because everybody would say, well, why? And I couldn't give them answers. And that took me way until my 30s until I realized that what that was my version of intuition.
Yeah.
And it was really good. And actually, it wasn't a little bit good. It was really good. And 9 times out of 10, I was right, okay? But I couldn't tell you why I was right.
Yeah.
Now, it's not spooky and woo-woo and God's not acting through me. None of that stuff. It's just that my brain is really good at watching everything. Yeah. My wife has ADHD, and which in our world is not a problem, okay? And she's got very bad ADHD as well. And I don't know, 6 times a day she'll say to me, have you seen my phone? Okay. And each time I'll say, yeah, it was in the toilet, it was downstairs by the bookcase, it was it was by the back door, it was on the roof of your car, and the car's still open. It was just I'm unconsciously I'm aware of everything that happens around me, and I like that. It's a superpower. I haven't got to do any work for it. But it took me a long time to trust myself. And I guess kind of this is where you're going with this podcast, isn't it? How do you realize you have a superpower, but you didn't even know you had it? And that was a big aha moment for me when I realized that other people didn't have this, or very few people had it. Yet to me, I'd always had it. Yeah.
So at some point, you...
Oh, yeah. I was giving you my story. Sorry.
Yeah. You said
I was pretty high functioning, and but I would keep stressing myself out. And every job I had, very quickly they would say, well, John's very good at that, we'll make him the manager. Or John's very good at that, we'll make him the boss. And John's very good at that, we'll make him a director. And I'm thinking, I don't want to be a director, I want to be a boss. Right? But I just kept putting me in these jobs because I was high functioning. And because of my anxiety and my OCD, I was kind of a perfectionist. Although to me it wasn't perfection, it was just, well, if you're going to do a job, do it properly, And I probably did twice as much work as anybody else to have this perfection, but to me it was just normal. And I didn't realize at the time that really I was annoying other people. So other people that were doing my job, and I was doing it, twice as good as them, is making them look bad. And they're saying to me, John, you haven't got to do it like that. You haven't got to work so hard. I want to do this. Okay. And so that would exhaust me, trying to work harder than I needed to work. Common sense now said, if you're paid to do a job, you only need to work 1% more than everybody else, and you're the best person there. So if you've got your own company, well, then, yeah, you can put whatever effort you like in. So I was really exhausting myself through all of my work. And then they kept giving me prizes and new jobs that scared me because I'd never done that stuff before. And then I would just go, oh, my God, they're going to find out that I'm a fraud and that I can't do this. But I'd go and do it, and I'd go and learn it, and I would be okay at it. And that went on for years and years and years. But in the background, my anxiety and my OCD grew in correlation to the stress and the exhaustion I was having in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And it started in my mid-20s to get really out of hand. I did a lot of work in other countries, and spent a lot of time in America and in Japan and China and Korea and all over Asia. And I started to get caught up in loops of intrusive thoughts. The worst ones were about if I was in a restaurant, if you went to a hotel and you went down to your breakfast, like a buffet, and you help yourself to all the food. If I was in a queue with other people, and if I was holding chopsticks or a knife and fork, I thought I would stab the person in front, or I would smash my plate and slash their neck and stuff like that. And it kind of sounds crazy now, but back then I thought, well, what if I did do that? And back then, no one knew what OCD was. This is back in the 90s or whatever. No one knew what OCD was and or what intrusive thoughts were. And I just thought I was going mad. And I'd always felt like the odd one out in my whole life anyway. And I thought, well, this is where it ends, really stabbing a person in South Korea. And if I was traveling with somebody else, I thought, well, if I do go out of hand, they'll calm me down and stop me doing it. Okay, but if I'm on my own, who's going to stop me? So I stopped going into restaurants. Yeah, I was out doing business in all these countries. So all these little OCDs things started to happen, and then it got worse and worse. And then it got to flying. I started to be scared every time I was on an aeroplane. And then if I drove my car, I started panicking my car if I went on a freeway. And all it was my exhaustion, my unconscious trying to sabotage me to bring me home so I can recharge by trying to sabotage my whole world. And anyway, by the time I got to about 35, I just had a complete mental breakdown, and I couldn't work. I was just in bed for 6 months, worrying about how I would ever get better again, and getting up every 3 hours to clean my kitchen that no one even used in the meantime. So I just thought I'd lost the plot, and the company I was working for, they were really good. They said, we'll pay for you to get some therapy. So I started working with this. Well, I started working with a number of therapists, but none of them understood what I was really going through. They said they did, but they didn't, and they didn't understand me either. And I worked with 3 or 4 of them, and I really wasn't very impressed. And a friend of mine said, there's a person in North London, in Finchley, that is very good, and you should try him. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll give him a try. And I remember turning up on his doorstep, and he was wearing like a trousers and a shirt, but he had no shoes and socks on. Okay, and I thought, it was a bit weird. I mean, what kind of a therapist is this? But he was very funny, and he was very laid back, and he wasn't like all the other therapists, and I liked him a lot. And he used to be an engineer as well, and he went from engineering into therapy, and he started teaching me all about the anxiety and what it is, and all the stuff that you and I might say, well, yeah, we all know that now, but back then nobody knew this stuff. And eventually he said to me, John, what do you think happens when you die? And I said, lights go out, game over. I'm an engineer, that's what happens, right? Unless you can prove it to me. and he's just smiling at me. And I said, what? And he said, no, nothing. He said, that must be terrifying to think that when you die, it's all gone. And of course it's terrifying. That's the problem, isn't it? That's what anxiety is. It's basically a fear of everything going wrong and you dying and whatever. And he said, well, why don't you be smarter than that? Why don't you consciously train your unconscious to believe there's life after death? And I said, well, that's just crazy. Why would you do that? It's not true, right? And he said, no, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. But what if you could consciously train your unconscious to think it was true? You don't have to consciously think it's true. And I was saying, well, no, you're talking in riddles now. This is, what do you mean? And then he said to me, well, the conscious mind and the unconscious mind, they're on 2 different circuits. I said, are they? And he explained it all to me. Well, look, 2 different circuits, right? You don't ask for your unconscious thoughts, do you? Consciously? No, they just come up, right? Well, it's on a different circuit. Right? And if you could, why don't you just say, stop coming up? They don't stop coming up. They just keep coming up. Therefore, they're 2 different circuits.
Right.
He said, you can control the conscious one, can't you? You can choose to think about something, but you can't choose your unconscious to do something. So he said, why don't you trust me and train your unconscious mind to believe something new? Right? Because all it believes at the moment is what school told it and what life told it and what your mum told it and all the domestication. It's just the programs that are running round and round, okay? And you can consciously change them if you want to. And I said, well, actually, as an engineer, that makes a lot of sense. Right? And so I said, so what do I do? And he said, I'm going to give you some books and go to the bookstore, buy the books, read them. He said, they're a bit woo-woo, they're a bit out there, but consciously don't worry about that because you're just trying to program your unconscious mind, okay? Uh-huh. So don't judge them, just keep reading them and saying all these things, okay? And every time your unconscious mind says, oh, you're an idiot, you say, no, I'm lovely, I'm wonderful, I'm really clever, I'm really cool. Right? Even if you don't believe it, it doesn't matter, right? Because the more you do that, the more it's going to change your story. And so I started doing that, and I actually quite enjoyed the books. I still thought they were woo-woo rubbish, okay? But they were interesting. It made a lot of sense, but I still didn't believe them. I programmed on it. I ERP'd my unconscious mind. And after about a few months, my unconscious mind just came back with like, well, it doesn't matter if you die anyway because there's another life. Whoa, that's really cool. That's a different story. So that's how I kind of got into programming your unconscious mind. Even if it's not consciously the truth of what you believe, you can still train it.
Sure. Yeah, that's exactly.
I guess that's how you brainwash somebody, isn't it?
When I watched your video about that, that's exactly what happened to me. I did the same thing, and then yeah. And it's really, but most people don't believe that you can do it. Yeah. Or even if they do believe that you can do it, they don't do the work to reprogram it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I would make recordings of myself telling my unconscious what I wanted it to think, and as I went to sleep at night, I'd put headphones on and just listen to myself. And in the beginning, I hated hearing my own voice, but I'll deal with that. And then after I got back on my feet again, and I sort of went, oh, this is what this guy is doing is working. It's making me see the world differently. And then after reading all these books, I started to go, well, you know what? Maybe there is something in this. Maybe actually it could be true. And then that started me going on retreats and starting to learn how to meditate and start to hang out with all the woo-woo people that I try to stay away from. And actually, they were really nice people and they made a lot of sense. And slowly, all these weird things started happening to me. And I was going, oh my God, there could be something to this. So that's how I got involved in it.
Can you tell us about a time or tell a story of when this inner guidance led to something positive for you?
Yeah. Probably the most tangible one is when I met my wife, Jen. We met about 12 years ago, I think it was, and we were introduced. I was single and she was single, and we were introduced by a common friend. And our friend said, she said to Jen, oh, you're going to love John. And she said to me, oh, you're going to love Jen. And we went, yeah, well, we'll see about that, okay? We're both very independent. And we met up and we kind of liked each other, but Jen was really busy with her work, and I was sort of in a strange phase of my life. But we hung out together, and it was a lot of fun to hang out together. But we are chalk and cheese. We are completely different. Okay. And we would sort of rub each other up the wrong way really easily. Okay. I'm more introverted. She's really extroverted. I like attention to detail. She's ADHD. I turn up on time. Mm-hmm. She turns up late in the wrong place, and we kept sort of getting together, then not seeing each other, then hanging out, and all the way through, my brain was going, this is never going to work. This is crazy. But on my intuition side, it was always, there's something about this woman. There's something about this woman that's really, really, really special. And to cut a long story short, it took about 4 years. We started living together after about a year, but it took about 4 years until we got it right. Mm-hmm. And we actually aligned with the relationship, and I understand who she was and she understood who I was, and that we slowly like decided to work together. And now here we are years later. We've been married for 2 years now. It's just as wonderful as ever been, maybe more wonderful now than it's ever been. We're more in love now. So that intuition that actually, you know, there's more to this than the stories in my mind and my behaviors and her behaviors. So that's the biggest one that jumps to my mind. But over my life, there's been so many times that intuition. I think another big one, after I got better from all my mental breakdowns, I suddenly realized, yeah, I had a great job working in the corporate world with all money and cars and everything else, but it wasn't what I wanted to do, not at all. And that there was no, I liked the story of it. My ego liked the story of it, but my soul was empty, and I walked away from it and said, I'm going to start again. I'm going to start doing something new. And I thought, I'm going to become a therapist, and thinking I'd work with people who have anxiety. And in my naivety, I didn't think there would be many people that had anxiety, because me, I was a weird, freaky one. But actually, it turns out half the population of the planet have anxiety.
Yeah.
So that's how I made a website way back 2006, 2007, maybe, I don't know. And I thought, if I make a website and I document my stories of myself, the stupid things I had to do with my OCD and how I overcome it, and I just started blogging about all these things. And back then, not many people were blogging, so I got a lot of airtime, and people would be ringing me up and stuff like that. So pretty quickly, I had a very good therapy practice of people coming to my office and working together. So I learned how to do it and honed my skills over the next sort of 15 years or so. And then about in 2018, 2019, everyone kept saying to me, John, you should write a book. You know, you're working with the most complicated OCD cases, that you've got all your experiences, you're a good storyteller, you're very good at taking complicated problems and making them sound really easy, you know, in models and things like that. You should write a book, make some videos. And I kept saying, I don't want to make a video. I don't want to be on a video. I don't like being on camera. I'm shy and geeky and blah, blah, blah. And I just kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And it's such a big thing. If you're going to write a book or make a course, where do you start? It's like, it's just like, for me, it was just overpowering. It was overwhelming. And I made an animation. I made this a friend of mine sent me a little, I don't know, 20-second animation of a little hand-drawn whiteboard video. They're quite common now, but back then they weren't very common. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. How did you do that? I didn't know you could animate. And he said, no, John, it's software. So I downloaded this software and I thought, I can play around with this. So I thought, what can I do? What can I make? So I made an animation talking about how I saw OCD. And it took me 3 weeks, okay? And I wrote the script and I recorded it and I animated it. And my computer at the time wasn't very good. And the file was so big, because these animation clips are only supposed to be 2 or 3 minutes long. And me being me, I've got a 17-minute animation that was about 5 gigabytes or something. And I finally finished it. And my friend came round and I said, can I show you something? And she said, yeah. I said, don't say anything, just watch this thing. And then at the end, be brutally honest with me. And I'm thinking, this is just a crappy thing that I've made, my first pass at something. And she watched the whole thing, and then she looked at me and she went, how much did that cost you to get a studio to make that? And I said, I did it. She went, you did it? I went, yeah, right. And she went, that's brilliant. I said, well, forget the fact that I did it. But what about the content? What about delivery? Is it engaging? Is it interesting? Does it feel real? She said, it's brilliant. Never seen anything like this. And I said, well, I'm really surprised. So I said to her, well, what I'll do now, if you like it, I'll now do it properly, because that was my, And she went, no, you've got to put this on YouTube. And I said, I don't want to put it on YouTube. She went, no, you've got to, John. Because I'm not a doctor, I'm an engineer. Yeah, I'm a therapist, but I'm not a doctor. But I know a lot about OCD. I really do, because I don't have it anymore. Right? So whatever I did, and I worked with people who've had OCD for years and years and years. Anyway, I finally put it out there, and within no time, there was 1 million views. Right? And everyone was contacting me saying, this is brilliant, this is brilliant, this is brilliant, this is brilliant. So I thought, okay, well, maybe I'm onto something. So then I'm thinking, right, I'm going to make a course with these animation videos because I don't want to do anything to camera. You know, it's like sitting in front of the camera. It's not that comfortable in the beginning. So I thought, yeah, I'm going to make these animations. And by then, lots of people were saying, when's your next video coming? When's your next animation coming? And then I got a call one day from a guy, and I can't remember who he is, and he was in Eastern Europe somewhere. I can't do his accent, so I won't. So he said to me, he said, John is Vladimir or whatever. And he said, I've seen your OCD video, and I've sent you many emails saying, when's the next video? And I said, oh, yeah. I'm just sort of doing more animations now, but they take a long time. And he went, John, just make some bloody videos. Right? That's what he said to me. And I went, oh, okay, maybe I can. So I bought a camera and I started making videos. And then and that's how the course started. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then strangely what happened was COVID kicked in 2020, I think it was. And suddenly nobody come to my office to do therapy. Okay. And I didn't want to do Zoom therapy. I think most therapists like being face-to-face with the person that they're working with, you know, because you can feel it, you can gauge it, you can use whiteboards and you can use props and you can, you know. And I never did any Zoom stuff before then because I didn't like it, I didn't want to do it. But I was forced to do it. And I was thinking, I don't like this Zoom stuff very much. It's not fun without the person there, you know. So then I thought, right, if I capture everything I know into videos, then I can have a course. So that's where the course started. And what I did is I started a Patreon account, and I said to everybody, please join. It's only a few dollars, and each month I'll make a video. And what I really was doing was making myself accountable, because I know what I'm like. If I don't want to do something, it will slide. But if I make myself accountable, then accountability is important to me. So, as it got closer to the end of the month, I think, oh my God, I better write a video and better record it. And each month, on about the 11th hour of the last day of the month, I uploaded a video. And slowly a group of people grew and grew and grew, funding the next video. And I think I'm up to about 60 videos now. Yeah. So I've basically got 5 years of work of everything I know. Everything I know, not just about what anxiety is or depression, but it's about spirituality and it's about energy, and it's all based on everything that I've experienced. Nothing is hearsay or gossip or from a book. I went and tested it, and here's what I found out, and here's my documented story of what I found and what I discovered.
Yeah, one of the things that we really love about the course is that it's like this beautifully crafted, like it builds on, each module kind of builds on the last thing. But I think you had told me at some point that you didn't really have like a plan for the entire course, or you just kind of, went. No,
that's exactly what happened. What happened was the reason I couldn't start the book or the video course in the beginning was because my brain needed to see the end point before I could start. Yeah. And one of my friends kept saying to me, John, just start making something, right? And see where it takes you. So what I thought to myself was, if I make lots of videos, each video can be a chapter in a book. Mm-hmm. So and I've got 60 chapters, which I think is about 5 books worth of work. But the missing link when I was trying to fix myself from all my mental health problems was I was working on my mental health and I was working on my biological, emotional health, and I wasn't working on my spiritual health, Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that at the time until I met my therapist, and he sneaked sort of spirituality into me by training your unconscious, and so he'd done a good stealth job on me, because if he said at the beginning, if you learn how to be more spiritual, half your problems will go away, I'd have said, don't be stupid, and I'd have run off, okay? So he sort of sneaked up on me and sold it to me. And really, once I'd had on my spiritual awakenings and learned all these things and crazy stuff started happening to me, I realized that my course had to have a spiritual element, but I couldn't start off on day one saying this is a spiritual course. It's a health course, okay, for logical, rational, left brain people, okay, then sneak it into them in a way that by the time it comes up to them, they go, well, actually, what Glanvill's saying makes a lot of sense. Okay?
Yeah, I love it.
And that's how I try to formulate it. So really, it's a stealth spiritual course, but uses science and common sense for someone to reprogram themselves.
Yeah, and those two subjects really go hand in hand. I know when we first met, that was something that I felt.
He had told me that he felt like I was really working on my mental health, but he told me that he felt like spirituality and mental health is the same thing. And I was like, what does he mean? And then as I got further into your course, I was like, oh, okay. I get it now.
Yeah. John, how would you define or describe spirituality? Because it is kind of one of those buzzwords that can have a huge overlap with many things depending on the context, everything from religion to the woo-woo type of stuff.
For me, spirituality is realizing that we are not just John and Nick and Kendall. We are swimming in the same sea of energy, you know, and that if we do have a soul, all our souls go back to source, and your soul goes back to source, and yours goes back to source. So we are sort of connected some way or another, even if we can't feel it here in this 3D meat suit. So to me, that spirituality is that sense that you're bigger than something, a sense that something is greater than you, a sense that there is wisdom, knowledge, and energy that is far greater than we could even comprehend. That is there, that if we can tap into it and if we can be of value to it, then it will pull us up and pull us up and pull us up. And that actually, you know, that spiritually speaking, there is, like I mentioned, the Hawkins energy. There is energy that pulls you down, which you might call bad or whatever, an energy that pulls you up, that energizes you. And we might call it demonic and heavenly, or whatever language you want to use. It doesn't really matter. But you see, but there's a whole game of energy and divinity going on around you, and to deny it, it's plausible to deny it, but you'll be cutting off a whole part of your world that you could be part of, and whether you deny it or not, you're still part of it. So, so that's how I see it. The thing I struggled with for a really, really long time was, and I remember one of my mentors, I would badger him over and over again, like, well, yeah, but what is the soul, and what is the spirit, okay, and what is the body, and what is the mind, and what's divinity? My engineering brain wanted a chart, a spreadsheet of how it all works. And he just kept shaking his head and saying, John. Just accept it. Right? So I kind of think that I was trying to explain this to someone last week. I'm not really that interested in my brain. It has lots of ideas and thoughts, and that's really cool. But if it says something, to me, it doesn't mean it's true. It just means my brain had an idea. My brain had a concept. My brain doesn't like that. My brain, whatever. I'm not that interested in it. But the bit of me that's not interested in it, I think, is my soul. Yeah, and the observer. So my brain goes, oh, blah, blah, blah. And my observer is watching it and going, the brain just said blah, blah, blah. I don't need to do anything with that if I don't want to. So I tend to live my life from a soul's perspective. And as I mentioned in my course, I see my soul as the rider of my horse. My soul comes down from wherever inhabits this little body. The body doesn't need the soul because it can still think and act and do all its own stupid things. But the soul needs the body. Otherwise, it can't go and do all the things it needs to do. So that kind of concept I liked, whereby even if the body was anxious, the mind could be calm. The body's anxious. Oh, the brain's racing. Poor little horsey, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rather than go, oh my God, he won't stop thinking and it's all scared. So, I got that separation, and the mind, the brain, the soul can be calm even if the brain and the body is anxious and nervous. And then I think what runs through the soul is spirit. And spirit is the soul's connection to divinity.
Mm-hmm.
That you get fed stuff, you get downloads, you get awarenesses, you get intuition. That if your mind is quiet enough and your body is quiet enough, you can sense and you can feel. But if your brain's racing and your body's anxious, how are you going to feel these subtle guidances, these subtle nudges this way and that way? Where once you learn that that's what's happening, you feel them all day long. And just nobody ever told you to look for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I always really enjoyed learning about that concept in your course. It's one of the main things that really can shift your perspective about things and help you be grounded. And that, among all the other things in your course, is just a limitless wealth of knowledge. And what was your drive to make this switch to, helping people really?
Yeah. It's rewarding. It's rewarding, and every now and then somebody will ring me up and say, John, my name's Fred. I went, oh, Fred, that sounds familiar. And he says, yeah, he worked with me 10 years ago. And, oh, yeah, Fred, you had a blue car. And he goes, yeah, do you remember my blue car? I don't know, I just remember it. And I said, and my brain just gives me all this information about Fred. And he went, I just want to let you know that I got married last week and I've got a baby on the way and I've got a new job now. And I never got around to thanking you. And I went, oh, wow. And it's just lovely that, you've got a footprint. And then as I got older, and as you say, in my course, there's so much in there. And the reason there's so much in there is, I believe if a person wants to change, let's say someone's anxious or depressed or whatever, the reason they're anxious or depressed is because they're thinking and acting in anxious and depressive ways. You say to a depressed person, come on, we'll go for a run. Oh, I'm just too tired to go for a run. But if you go for a run, you'll feel better afterwards. Oh, I don't want to do it. Okay. Now, I'm not taking the mickey out of them. It's just, that's how it goes. Okay. So what I learned really, really early was, if you're going to take the anxiety or the depression out of a person, you've got to replace it with something else. Otherwise, they're going to carry on being that person and it will just come back again. So, one of my phrases through the course is, you can't get rid of anxiety by staying the same person. You've got to become a new person where anxiety would struggle to reside within you. So if a person's going to change, then they need a whole set of tools of how can I change? And that's really 90% of my course. 10% is what you're dealing with. 10% is what you do about it. And then the other 80% is how you live life differently, how you do exposure therapy, how you change yourself, how you change your story, how you get into relationships, how you do relationships, how you understand different personality types so you can communicate with them more effectively, how you can talk yourself into doing things rather than talking yourself out of doing things, how you can raise your energy levels. And so it's like an owner's manual of how to be you, how to run your brain and body that you didn't get during childhood. And I enjoy that, and I like it. And there's nothing that I talk about that I haven't tested on myself, and it was true for me. And because it was true for me, I will now talk about it and write about it.
Yeah. I really love that, and you're really inspiring for me, because having gone through a transformative experience like that too, like I was diagnosed with social anxiety disorder, and it was so bad that I also got diagnosed with the autism spectrum disorder when I was, at my worst. And want to, when you recover, and this was my experience anyway, I wanted to tell the whole world and literally tell every single person, oh my God, I made this discovery. Like, you can change who you are or whatever. Because one day I woke up and, like you described, I felt like a completely different person. And it's a truly amazing experience to go through. And yeah, I just want to, like you, help people make the same change in them. But it's really difficult because...
Yeah, I remember, I hear you completely, Nick. I remember because when I wanted to write a book and then I wanted to make some videos, and I was also in my head, it was saying, well, whatever you make, it's going to be out there forevermore. You know what I mean? Or, it's like, so really you're bearing your soul to be scrutinized by the world, and you're not even a doctor and so on. And in the end, I bit the bullet and said, no, what I'm going to do is be really, really careful with my words. Mm-hmm. I'm quite good with words. So I decided that I would never say this is true. Mm-hmm. I would never say this always works. Mm-hmm. I would always say, I tried this and it worked for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If it works for you. Yeah. I tried it on myself, and what I found was this. I can't explain it in words, but this metaphor describes it. Okay. Mm-hmm. So nothing in there says this is the truth of anything. But it is the truth of my experience.
Yeah.
And the more I started to write like that, I went, well, this is great, because no one can say you're wrong, John, because I said, no, I was in this room and I had an out-of-body experience, and I was looking down at my body over there, and it freaked the fuck out of me, right? and that was true. That happened. And I don't care what anybody says about it, because that happened to me, okay? Yeah. So I then became inspired by my own truth, okay? Yeah. And then the more I wrote, because I knew I had such a body of work and I'd helped so many people, that I knew something I was doing was right, that I thought, no, it would be wrong of me not to capture everything I know, so that when I do pass on, mm-hmm. it's there for those who want to do it. Yeah. Now, I'm wise enough now to know that those who will want to do it are only this percentage of the population. Yeah. If I can help them, great, because they're the ones that are moving up. And they're the ones who are going to change the world, aren't they? They're the ones who are going to make the biggest difference in the world. Have you written a book? No, but I've got 400,000 words. Okay. And now that's overwhelming me of how you turn them into a book. But they're all there. It's all there. So if you know somebody who likes putting words together. Yeah. AI does. Like, AI could just watch your video and AI. I refuse to let AI be part of my work. I've kept it out of all of my work. Everything is my words, my descriptions, my things. When you run it through AI, it makes it sound all very lovely, but you lose the nuance of that sensation that you felt, or that realization that you had. So I refuse to let AI. If I'm gonna compile the book, it's gonna be old-fashioned way. Yeah. So that's kind of how I saw that side of things.
So, what's something that your soul's been teaching you lately?
Yeah, I'm really, really, really fascinated with energy at the moment. I have been for 20 years, okay, but now I only really think in terms of energy. Energy and breath work, and how breath work raises your energy. Mm-hmm. And how high energy, high you take you to a very high frequency state. And in those high frequency states, trauma seems to not be able to handle it, and it seems to rise up. I think, through Reiki and stuff like that, mm-hmm. you're working with somebody, and then there's this whole patch of something, and it starts coming up, right? And you can feel it, can't you? Okay, it's almost your energy is giving it the go ahead for that thing to move out of that person. Well, I'm really, really, really into that at the moment, and I'm looking for some teachers that I can work with that really take me to the next level. Yeah. So that's where my soul is taking me at the moment, is
love it.
To make a course in 2 or 3 years time about energy, an energy course. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Is there a specific discipline of energy work that you're kind of interested in more than others?
No, I'm interested in. See, now it goes really into kind of woo-woo land, because if I'm doing some breath work or whatever and some energy comes out of me, I don't know what's coming out of me.
Yeah.
Is it some stuck energy? Is it some trapped trauma? Is it something coming through my chakras from a different plane? Is it an astral entity? I have no idea. And you might feel a lot better and go, well, that's fantastic. That's out of me now. That's great. I feel loose. But where's it gone? And what does it do? So I'm still in a sort of. Some people would say, "Oh, you're very advanced in how you talk about energy and how you understand energy." And in other perspectives, I know nothing. So I need to go into the research phase, and I need to find good mentors.
One of the
and good
energies
teachers.
I released today was not my own. So I always think that's really interesting when you kind of come to that realization that, oh, I've been carrying someone else's fear or, anger, and then when you release it, it's like, oh. That's just been sitting in me for years.
Well,
so much lighter.
What I've found is since I've learned to sort of clear my own stuff, when I'm working with other people now, I can actually sense it moving across to me. It's almost like, I can't put this into any. It feels like a channel's opened and that comes to me, right? Mm-hmm. And then I kind of got to be aware of it, but I can handle it. And then when they're gone or whatever, I can get rid of it. Now I don't like that. I don't want to be a conduit to somebody else's trauma or somebody else's entities. But at the moment that's what's going on. So I need to find some advice and some. But at the moment, what's happening is it's just happening. So it's I can block it, I can stop it. But so that's where my soul's taking me at the moment.
Yeah.
I relate a lot.
I think staying on your toes and having that awareness of whether, it's like an energetic thing or it's like a conditioning that you're going through. Like, oh, when I hear my dad start to raise his voice, then I have this reaction. But if you have that awareness of like, oh, my body's reacting, then you can do all of the things that you're talking about and kind of start reprogramming.
Yeah. Well, a long time ago, a long time ago, I'd be working with people. I remember one time I was there was somebody sitting in my therapy chair, and I had my back to them, and I was drawing something on a whiteboard. I like to explain things and draw pictures and stuff. And as I'm drawing this thing, all the hairs on my arms stood on end, and every hair on my body stood on end. And I went, "Oh, wow, that's a bit weird." Okay, and I just carried on drawing, and something in my head, and it wasn't no words, it was just a knowingness. I said to the other person, "Have you just had a big realization?" Right? And I turned around, and the person was crying. Right? And she said, "Oh my God, I've just remembered something from my past." And I said, "Is it really profound?" She said, "Oh yeah, it's unbelievably profound." Now, since then, every time somebody has an aha moment, all the hairs on my arm stand up. And it's now almost funny, okay? Because somebody will be talking to me, and then this will happen, and I was looking at them, and I went, "You've just discovered something, haven't you?" And they go, "How'd you know that?" And I said, "Do you really want to know?" And they went, "Yeah, how'd you know that?" I said, "Because all the hairs on my arms just stood up." And they'll either say, "Oh, well, yeah, it's an energetic thing, isn't it?"
Yeah.
Or they'll go, "Well, that's just stupid. How could you know that?" But it's an energetic thing, isn't it? Obviously, my field is bigger than me, and their field is bigger than them, and our fields are overarching, and they're communicating, not with our first five senses, but what about a sixth or seventh or eighth or ninth sense? That if you're still and you're calm, you can start to sense something's going on there. But if you're thinking, "Oh, I wonder what question they're going to ask next. What routine am I going to do with them next?" Then you're not playing the energetic game. And I also think, and I'm just making this up because I don't know it to be true, but I think my energy is very good, and I think my energy is very clean, and I think people feel very comfortable in my energy, and because of that, their stuff can come up, as it were, So I think the environment is also important. Not like the room, if you like, although maybe as well, but the way I work is very laid back. But it's also it's very, very blunt. I won't let, if someone says, "Oh, I don't think I can do that," I'll say, "Why? Why can't you do that?" Let's find a way that we can do this. I am quite a bit of a bully, really. But I can't.
The best teachers are, huh?
Yeah.
A little bit. They push you.
Do you believe that we all have a purpose, or is it kind of something that we just create ourselves?
Good question. I do believe our soul has a purpose. I do. I don't know that your soul, I try to live my life from my soul or my observer as best I can. Okay. And my soul doesn't really talk. Okay. It's kind of silent. It's a silent observer. Okay. And if it's actually doing any talking, it's really my conscious mind or my ego trying to guess what my soul wants. Okay. But my soul does know what I like, and it does know what I don't like without any words. You meet somebody and you either like them or you don't like it. You don't need a story about it. You don't need to know why, especially if you're really intuitive. So where was I going with this? So I think your soul has a purpose. I think it comes down here to learn whatever it needs to do. I don't think you're told what that purpose is. I think you've got to go and touch lots of things till you find out what that purpose is. But I'll come back to the soul in a second. But if we go back to the human being, I don't really think the human being has a purpose except for to reproduce, have fun, whatever, And you can go through your whole life and do nothing, or you can go through your whole life and run a company. You go through your whole life and just bum around and go skiing every winter. It doesn't matter what you do, okay, by your own definition of what your purpose is or isn't. Yeah. But I think a person will often benefit from having a purpose. Yeah. Because I think, if your purpose is to be the best father or the best husband or the best whatever, then at least you've got a purpose. You've got a reason to get up in the morning. Okay. But if we go back to, so I don't think the human actually needs purpose. I think the soul has purpose, but you've got to go and find out what it is. And I think now I'm getting older. I really, really think that one of my purposes, or one of my, is to teach. I think, I'm a reluctant teacher, but it seems to be, I keep ending up there. Okay. And I think one of the other purposes is for my soul is to find people like me around the world and to help them bloom and to blossom and to be their best. Okay. Because there's a lot of people that are really talented and really creative and really, really cool, but just not doing what they could do. That's one of the reasons I've always liked working with you, Kendall, is you go and do stuff and you're creative and it's scary, but you still go and do it, and I love waking up people like that and empowering them, because they go and inspire so many other people, and with respect, they're not the normal people. They're more than the normal people. There's something extra about them. And so I think that I track those sorts of people through my work. Really, someone watches my video, go, "Oh my God, he understands me," right? And I do, because I'm that same nutcase, right? So I think that is one of my purposes, is to be there for those who are a bit special, to bloom. And even if it's not the truth, I like that as a story.
Yeah. Love that. What is a book, quote, or teaching that's deeply influenced you?
There's so many. I think the simplest and best one is The Four Agreements from Don Miguel Ruiz. One of my absolute favorite books, and just 4 simple ways of looking at life. And I remember when I read that book, I thought that's too simple. It can't be that easy. Okay, but I really loved it. And I wrote down the 4 agreements on a piece of paper, and I laminated it, and I carried it around in my pocket while I was working, whatever. And for 6 months, every decision I made, I just I just referred to those 4 agreements, and I made them my decision-making process for 6 months, and it radically changed how I looked at the world. Not taking things personally, speaking with truth, and all those things. So simple and so powerful, and a book that you can read in 2 hours. So I love that.
Yeah.
And then there's a phrase I like that one of my mentors, Gary Van Warmerdam, he actually trained with Don Miguel. There's a big sort of crossover there. He has an expression which is express love and don't believe lies. And I worked with Gary for many, many years, and he keeps saying that to me: express love, don't believe lies. And in the beginning, I go, well, yeah, that's a very nice catchphrase, well done. But then after a few years, I went, oh my God, this is really profound. In every moment, express love. Okay, doesn't mean you've got to say anything or hug anybody, but you can express love in your own gentle way, not only to others but to yourself. Yeah. And to not believe the lies, meaning your own lies from your own brain, your own domestication, your own stories, but also the lies of someone being angry at you. You're an idiot. Well, I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm not an idiot, but I to see your point of view. It's and don't believe the lies from the newspapers and the politicians and everything else. And that's just a lovely, lovely little small thing to remind yourself. And I bought an iPad a couple of years ago, and when I went through the purchase of buying it, at the end they said, we can engrave this if you like with something on the back. And I said, I want that written on there. And it was a few years back. I haven't even got that iPad anymore. But it was every time I turned it over, it had express love and don't believe the lies on the back of it. And it always made me smile. And I just thought that's a lovely little way of looking at life that is, I would say, very spiritual and very loving to yourself.
Yeah. Kind of starting to wrap up here. So, John, if your soul could speak directly to the audience, what would it want to convey?
I think it would say, trust yourself. Yeah. I think what it would say is, most people are caught up with attitudes. If somebody's pessimistic, well, they have a pessimistic attitude. If they're miserable, well, they have a miserable attitude. Whereas somebody else might have a happy attitude or a optimistic attitude. And an attitude is a belief system, and belief systems can be changed. So I think what my soul would love to say to everybody is, don't define yourself by an attitude. Oh, I'm pessimistic. What can I do? No, trust that you can learn to become optimistic by changing that belief, changing that behavior, changing that story. And whether you're pessimistic or optimistic, that still doesn't affect what will happen, because whatever happens is out of your control, whether you're an optimist or a pessimist. But the pessimist will worry about everything and drag themselves down into low energy. And an optimist will say, well, let's just see what happens. We'll try again next week, okay? Which is very high energy and very easy, very enabling. Regardless of what happens, optimists don't stress themselves and feel good. But to change the attitude, you have to change your belief system and your belief that you can even change. And what my soul would love to say to people is, you can change incredibly if someone shows you how to do it. And I think that's hopefully what my course tries to do, is give you the tools to do it, should you wish.
How can people connect with you in your work?
Yeah, really simple. I've got a website, which is just calmnessinmind.com, just one word. And on there is, in my true nature, there's hundreds of pages of information, there's videos, and there you can sign up for my course. It's I think it's about $13 or $14 a month. It's inexpensive. It should be a lot more expensive for what it is, but I want really good mental health tools to be available to anybody, no matter how much money they have. And I really, really, really want a resource that people can use that will change them should they wish. So calmnessinmind.com, there's all my information is in there, and go and check it out. I would love that.
Awesome. And is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience before we go?
Yeah. my advice would be, this is a very, very changing world at the moment, and there's lots of wonderful things happening and lots of horrible things happening, and there's many, many changes, and you can't really change that outside world, but you can change your internal response to it. Yeah. And you can be calm in an ever-changing world if someone teaches you how to do it. So working on your inner space is where you can get the biggest change. And of course, if that inner space can also connect with divinity, with the universe, with the godlyverse, and that all of that brings, then that is an avenue I think is really worth exploring, and certainly changed my life quite profoundly.
Well, it was an honor having you on the podcast, John, and we hope that everybody has been inspired and learned a lot from this one. So we'll see you next time.
It's been my pleasure, and I wish you both all the best of luck, and I take my hat off to you guys for stepping up and doing this, because it takes a lot of bravery, a lot of courage, and good for you. Good for you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, John. That means a lot.
All right then.
Bye. Thank you.